Welcome to Strip Coverlet, where we squeeze the bigger picture out of literature. I am Adrian Ford, and we are here for another poetry discussion, a poetry discussion that comes to us from Emily Dickinson, and as such, it will appear in two separate playlists on the channel. Obviously, the poetry discussion playlist, but also the Emily Dickinson playlist here on the channel, a playlist of all of the poetry discussions I have done for Emily Dickinson. Today's poem is maybe not one of the better known Emily Dickinson poems. I tried to think a lonelier thing. It is a poem that I don't think has much name recognition, but uh, I think it should. And I think what I want to talk about today is there is a stark word in this poem that I think gives an insight into the existence of Emily Dickinson. Now, obviously, the poem itself, and I always try to be careful. I always try to be careful and separate speaker from the poet. It is not necessarily the poet's existence that is coming through the poem. It is an authentic existence if it is a good poem, but it is not necessarily the the viewpoint of the poet. In today's world, I think we get sidetracked a little bit from that. There was now early in poetry, I think a lot of times it was the poet speaking through the poem, and today we have, I would dare I say, regressed to the point where it is the poet speaking through the poem, but not necessarily is that always the case. But this poem, well, let's just get into it. The poem reads as such. I tried to think a lonelier thing than any I had seen, some polar expiation, an omen in the bone of death's tremendous nearness. I probed retrieverless things, my duplicate to borrow. A haggard comfort springs from the belief that somewhere within the clutch of thought there dwells one other creature of heavenly love, forgot. I plucked at our partition, as one should pry the walls, between himself and horror's twin, without opposing cells. I strove, I almost strove to clasp his hand, such luxury. It grew that as myself could pity him, perhaps he pitied me. Now, there are so many things that could be made of this poem. And oftentimes I will speak about the hymny type of engine that is in Emily Dickinson's head. The the horsepower of her imagination was immense and maybe incomparable in all of literature, not just poetry, not just American letters. The sort of, I mean, this is almost a fantasy novel, right? I tried to think a lonelier thing. There's no telephones in Emily Dickinson's world. There's no cell phones. There's no televisions. There's no internet. I tried to think a lonelier thing, and in this divide, thinking you would connect us. Here she is speaking about a telepathic bond between two individuals who are themselves so lonely. But the word I want to focus on here is this: think. Look at it there. I tried to think a lonelier thing than any I had seen. What is the word think doing there? What is the word think doing there? I tried to create a lonelier thing than any I had seen, some polar expiation, an omen in the bone of death's tremendous nearness. I tried to envision a lonelier thing than any I had seen, some polar expiation. It's almost in the middle of those two words. Emily Dickinson here is using the word think seemingly half as creation and half as channel. I tried to channel a lonelier thing than any I had seen. And in that, in the fact that the word think is doing so much creation here. We really get an insight into our poet. Like I said, I often talk about the pure horsepower of Emily Dickinson's brain, and here we have the poet herself acknowledging that. The speaker, of course, but how would it occur to anyone else that strictly through their brain maneuverings, they would be able to have another? They would be able to create, to put forth, to connect with this other simply through brain power, simply through the mind. I don't think that type of thing, that type of instance occurs to anyone else, to anyone who has less than the sheer magnitude of power between their ears that Emily Dickinson has. And we get to go in Emily Dickinson's 1,775 poems. We get to go so many different places. And we are led there simply from Emily Dickinson's mind. We are led there simply from these things that Emily Dickinson has propped up in her own imagination. And as the poem progresses, we understand that this word is carrying very little weight. This word tried, is there basically to let us know that time has passed. It is not a word denoting failure here. I tried to, but could not. We go from trying to think a lonelier thing to attempting to clasp his hand, to realizing that this other lonely thing had his own thoughts. In today's world, and I hate to be one of these people, I hate to be the get off my lawn type, I hate to be the back in my day kind, I hate to be the uphill both ways individual, but the sheer amount of concentration, the sheer originality of thought necessary to come up with ideas such as this, let alone to write the poem, let alone to craft 1,775 of them. I dare say we will never see this type of thing again. There aren't people in this world today, not many, with this sheer type of concentration. And not just concentration, but concentration on imagination. That's a different thing. Can you concentrate and read a book? Sure. Can you concentrate and get through your math homework? Yeah. Some of you, some of us, right? I'm not saying I can. Math loses me quicker than anything. But to create this type of quandary, this type of conundrum, and end up explaining it so well through the language in so short a time, it's incredible. But it's only possible because the imagination of the writer is so powerful that to think a thing is to create that thing. To think a thing is to make it so. That's incredible. That is all I have for this poetry discussion. If you find yourself here by chance, but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button because literature is the only thing that I talk about on this channel. Poetry every Mondays, by the way, at least. But also, if you want to help me out with what I'm doing here, hitting the like button tells YouTube to share this video with other literature lovers. And I hope to have you back for the next one.